All right, let's dive into another deep dive on the Dharma Collection.
That's good to me.
Today we're looking at Dharmas 101 to 120.
Right.
And, there's a lot in here. We're going to be talking about different levels of concentration and the path to enlightenment and even cosmological stuff.
Yeah, this section, is really interesting because it starts to give us like a practical framework for understanding some of these concepts. Like it's kind of like a roadmap for navigating the spiritual journey.
Oh, I like the sound of that. A roadmap. All right, so Dharma 101, the four concentrations. So this is outlining different ways to focus the mind, right?
Exactly.
But what's the difference between, say, like concentration on light versus concentration on enclosed light?
So think of it this way. Concentration on light is about cultivating a bright, clear awareness. It's like lighting a candle in a dark room. But concentration on enclosed light is about taking that awareness and focusing it even further. It's like, if you take that candle flame and you focus it with a lens, making it more intense and powerful.
So it's like refining and intensifying that initial awareness.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and then we have the 11 establishments of concentration. Are those like different levels of meditative absorption?
Exactly. Each establishment represents a deepening of focus and clarity, ultimately leading to what's called the concentration giving immediate result, which suggests a level of mastery where insights and realizations, they just become readily accessible.
Wow, so it's like a gradual process of training the mind, like climbing a ladder of concentration.
Yeah.
All right, so Dharma 102 shifts our focus to the 8 persons. Who are these individuals and why are they significant?
So these are individuals at different stages on the path to enlightenment. Like, imagine a path with 8 milestones. First is the one on the path to stream entry, right? Someone who's just starting their journey. Then we have the stream enterer who's achieved the first level of liberation and so on. And each person kind of embodies a specific level of understanding and realization.
That's really fascinating how these dharmas build on each other.
Yeah.
First we're learning about cultivating concentration, and then we see how that concentration can lead to different stages of awakening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of all these concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Dharma 103 introduces us to the 18 individuals, which may seem a little confusing because we just talked about the 8 persons.
Yeah, what's the difference between these two groups?
So the 18 individuals provide more nuanced perspective on spiritual attainment. They include individuals like the faith follower and the Dharma follower, emphasizing that, there are different approaches to the path. It's not just, a single linear progression.
So there's not like a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah.
There's room for diversity in how we cultivate faith and understanding.
Absolutely. It acknowledges the uniqueness of each individual's journey. And it's even worth noting that the text itself even points out that there are, some discrepancies in the number of individuals listed, which I think kind of highlights the fluidity and evolving nature of these ancient teachings.
Right, so they're not meant to be taken literally.
Yeah.
Okay, Dharma 104. The 12 ways the Dharma wheel is turned. This sounds pretty abstract. What does it mean to turn the Dharma wheel?
So imagine, a wheel with 12 spokes, and each spoke represents a different way the Buddhist teachings are presented and understood. And each turning is like a different angle from which to view the same core truth.
So it's kind of like looking at a diamond from different facets.
Mm-hmm.
Each facet reveals a different aspect of its brilliance.
Exactly. Like, for example, the first turning focuses on the Four Noble Truths, specifically the truth of suffering. It's about recognizing the reality of suffering in our lives and understanding its nature. And then the second turning kind of builds on this, right, by exploring the cause of suffering and urging us to abandon them.
So each turning kind of builds upon the previous one, deepening our understanding, like a spiral curriculum.
Yeah.
You revisit the core concept, but at increasingly sophisticated levels.
Exactly. And just as the 18 individuals highlight the diversity of approaches to the path, the 12 turnings acknowledge that there are multiple ways to articulate and understand the Dharma.
Okay, this is really thought-provoking. Now, Dharma 105 kind of shifts gears a little bit and focuses on the 3 kinds of gifts. This seems a bit more practical, less theoretical.
Absolutely. It's about how we can practice generosity in our daily lives. And so the first is the gift of the Dharma, which is about sharing knowledge and wisdom, like what we're doing right now.
Oh, I like where this is going. So by sharing these insights with our listeners, we're actually engaging in the gift of the Dharma.
Exactly. It's about making these teachings accessible and helping others benefit from them. And then we have the gift of material things, which is more about traditional acts of giving, right, like donating to those in need. And lastly, there's the gift of friendliness, which emphasizes kindness, compassion, and creating a harmonious environment.
So even like a simple smile or a kind word can be a powerful gift.
Absolutely. This Dharma reminds us that generosity isn't just about material possessions. It's about sharing whatever we have to offer, whether it's knowledge, resources, or simply a positive attitude.
I love that. It really expands our definition of generosity beyond what we typically think of. Okay, so Dharma 106 delves into the three kinds of virtue. How does this differ from the three kinds of gifts?
So while the three kinds of gifts focus on our actions, the three kinds of virtue highlight the underlying qualities that motivate those actions.
So it's about cultivating the inner qualities that lead to a virtuous life.
Exactly. The first is meritorious virtue, which is about accumulating positive karma through good deeds. And then there's the virtue of holding to wholesome deeds, emphasizing, the importance of consistently acting ethically, like making it a way of life.
So it's not just about doing good things occasionally, but about making ethical choices a habit.
Precisely. And finally, we have the virtue of seeking the welfare of beings, which highlights the importance of compassion and acting for the benefit of all.
This reminds me of that concept of interconnectedness we talked about earlier. By cultivating these virtues, we're not only benefiting ourselves, but also contributing to the well-being of others and the world around us.
Exactly. It's a beautiful reminder that our actions have ripple effects, right? And that by cultivating virtue, we can create a more positive and harmonious world for everyone.
Okay, this is really starting to paint a rich picture of the path. Now, Dharma 107 introduces the concept of manifold receptivities. What does it mean to be receptive in this context?
Hmm. So this Dharma explores the different ways we can be open to learning, growth and transformation. It's about cultivating a mindset that allows us to embrace new insights and experiences.
So it's about having an open mind and a willingness to learn.
Yes, but it goes deeper than that. One type of receptivity mentioned is receptivity from seeing the Dharma, which is about, being open to the teachings and understanding their profound implications.
So it's not just about passively listening, but about actively engaging with the teachings and allowing them to transform us.
Exactly. Another type of receptivity is receptivity from forbearance with suffering, which highlights the transformative potential of difficult experiences. It suggests that, by facing challenges with courage and wisdom, we can actually learn and grow from them.
This is a powerful message. It suggests that even difficult times can be opportunities for growth and transformation.
Exactly. And then there's receptivity from the state of helping others, which suggests that, by cultivating compassion and acting for the benefit of others, we become more open to wisdom and insight.
So by giving to others, we're also enriching ourselves.
Exactly. It's like a virtuous cycle, where generosity and compassion create the conditions for greater receptivity and spiritual growth.
Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. Cultivating concentration, understanding the path, practicing generosity, embodying virtue, and being receptive. It's all interconnected and contributes to our overall spiritual development.
Absolutely. And that brings us to Dharma 108, which focuses on the three kinds of energy. What do you think energy fits into this picture?
Well, if receptivity is about being open to learning and growth, then energy must be the fuel that propels us forward on the path, right? It's what allows us to put these teachings into practice and make progress.
That's a brilliant insight. This Dharma describes different types of energy that support our spiritual journey. The first is energy as armor, which is about cultivating resilience and determination, protecting ourselves from negative influences.
So it's like building up our inner strength and resistance to challenges.
Exactly. And then there's energy as practice, which emphasizes diligent and consistent effort in our chosen path.
Oh.
It's about showing up day after day and doing the work, even when it's difficult.
So it's like the engine that keeps us moving forward, even when we encounter obstacles.
Precisely. And finally, we have energy as accomplishment, which refers to the powerful energy that arises when we start to see the fruits of our effort. It's the energy of progress, realization, and joy.
I can imagine that feeling, like a sense of satisfaction and motivation you get when you've achieved something you've been working toward.
Exactly. It's a reminder that the path is not just about struggle and effort. It's also about joy, fulfillment, and the realization of our true potential.
This is really starting to make sense. We've talked about cultivating concentration, understanding the path, practicing generosity, embodying virtue, being receptive, and now harnessing energy. It feels like we're building a solid foundation for spiritual growth.
You're absolutely right. And that brings us to Dharma 109, the three kinds of meditation. How do you think meditation fits into this framework?
Well, if we've kind of laid the groundwork with all these other practices, then meditation must be the tool that helps us integrate them and deepen our understanding, right? It's like the laboratory where we can experiment with these concepts and see how they play out in our own minds.
That's a fantastic way to put it. So, this Dharma outlines three different types of meditation, emphasizing that not all forms of meditation are created equal. It starts by describing meditation with fault that leads to decay, suggesting that there are forms of meditation that can actually be harmful if not practiced correctly.
So even with meditation, there's a right way and a wrong way. It's not just about sitting down and closing your eyes. It's about approaching the practice with skill and understanding.
Exactly. It highlights the importance of finding skillful guidance, and practicing with wisdom and discernment. And then we have meditation that is a happy abiding, which suggests a state of peaceful contentment cultivated through meditation.
So it's about finding that inner peace and tranquility that we often seek.
Yes. And finally, there's meditation that is entirely magnificent, hinting at a level of profound meditative absorption where deep insights and realizations are possible.
So meditation can be a powerful tool for achieving those higher levels of concentration we talked about earlier, those states where wisdom and insight become more accessible.
Precisely. It's a key practice for cultivating the qualities and insights that support our spiritual journey.
This is fascinating stuff. Dharma 110 takes us to the three kinds of wisdom. We've talked about wisdom a lot already, but how do we actually cultivate it? What are the pathways to wisdom?
So this Dharma outlines three key pathways. The first is by way of learning, which emphasizes the importance of studying the teachings and acquiring knowledge.
So hitting the books, attending lectures, listening to podcasts like this one.
Exactly. It's about exposing ourselves to the wisdom of those who have come before us and absorbing their insights. And then the second pathway is by way of thinking, which involves, contemplating what we've learned, analyzing it, making connections.
So it's not enough to just passively absorb information.
Mm.
We need to actively engage with it, question it, and see how it relates to our own experience.
Precisely. And the third pathway is by way of meditation, suggesting that through meditative practice, we can gain direct experiential wisdom.
So it's not just about what we know in our heads, but what we realize through direct experience, through cultivating mindfulness and observing the workings of our own minds.
Exactly. True wisdom arises from the integration of knowledge, contemplation, and lived experience. It's about embodying the teachings and making them a living reality in our own lives.
This is really starting to come together. We're seeing how all these different practices, concentration, generosity, virtue, receptivity, energy, and meditation, all contribute to the cultivation of wisdom. It's like a symphony of practices, each playing its part in creating a harmonious and enlightened life.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And speaking of harmony, let's move on to Dharma 111, manifold means. What kind of means are we talking about here?
Well, based on what we've explored so far, I'm guessing it refers to the skillful methods or tools we can use on the path to enlightenment, right? Like the practices we've been discussing, the different ways we can cultivate wisdom and compassion.
You're exactly right. So this Dharma emphasizes the diversity of approaches and the importance of finding the methods that resonate most deeply with us. It highlights that which understands all beings, emphasizing compassion and empathy as essential qualities.
So putting ourselves in others' shoes, recognizing our shared humanity, and cultivating a deep sense of care and concern for all beings.
Yes. And it also mentions that which develops the welfare of beings, highlighting the importance of actions that benefit others and contribute to a more just and compassionate world.
So it's about aligning our actions with our values, putting our compassion into practice, and making a positive difference in the world around us.
Precisely. And then there's that which awakens quickly and pleasantly, suggesting that there are skillful means that can lead to swift spiritual progress, methods that are both effective and enjoyable.
So it's not just about gritting our teeth and pushing through difficult practices, but about finding the methods that resonate with us and bring us joy.
Exactly. It's about finding the path that feels aligned with our deepest aspirations and allows us to flourish.
Okay, this is getting really deep. Dharma 112 deals with the three kinds of aspirations. We've talked about aspirations briefly, but what kind of aspirations are we talking about here? And how do they differ from intentions?
Okay, so aspirations are like the deep-seated longings of the heart, the driving force behind our intentions. They're the why behind our actions, the fuel that keeps us moving forward on the path.
So they provide us with a sense of purpose and direction.
Yeah.
They're like the North Star guiding our journey.
Exactly. And so the three kinds of aspirations outlined in this Dharma offer a framework for understanding the different motivations that can guide us. So the first is bound to the beautiful, which can refer to, a desire for beauty in the conventional sense, but also a deeper longing for, spiritual perfection and the realization of our true nature.
So it's about aspiring towards something greater than ourselves, something that transcends the limitations of our ordinary experience.
Yes. And then there's bound to the welfare of beings, which highlights the aspiration to alleviate suffering and contribute to the well-being of all beings.
So it's about cultivating a deep sense of compassion and dedicating our lives to the service of others.
Precisely. And lastly, we have purifying the Buddha field, which refers to the aspiration to create a pure and harmonious environment for the flourishing of the Dharma,
Hmm.
both within ourselves and in the world around us.
So it's not just about focusing on our own enlightenment, but about creating the conditions for others to awaken as well. It's
Yeah.
about contributing to the collective awakening of all beings.
Exactly. And these aspirations are powerful motivators that can shape our actions and guide us toward a life of meaning and purpose.
This is really inspiring. It makes me think about my own aspirations and what I want to contribute to the world. Now, Dharma 113 shifts our focus to the three kinds of strengths. What kind of strengths are being referred to here?
Hmm. So this Dharma is a bit more ambiguous. Even the text acknowledges that.
Okay.
But I think it's pointing to the inner resources we can draw upon to navigate the challenges of the path and cultivate greater wisdom and compassion.
So it's like building up our inner resilience and fortitude.
Exactly. So the first strength listed is revolution through deeds, which suggests that, skillful actions aligned with wisdom and compassion have the power to create positive change in ourselves and the world around us.
So it's about putting our understanding into practice and making a difference through our actions.
Yes. And then there's the torment of the defilements, which, points to the inner strength required to face and overcome our negative tendencies.
So it's about acknowledging our shadow side, those parts of ourselves that hold us back, and working to transform them.
Precisely. And finally, we have revolution through heedlessness of mind, which might sound counterintuitive, but I think it's pointing to the transformative power of mindfulness. By becoming aware of our habitual patterns of thinking, we can break free from them and create new, more skillful ways of being.
So it's about using mindfulness to disrupt our autopilot and make conscious choices that are aligned with our values and aspirations.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a mindful awareness that allows us to see things more clearly and respond to challenges with greater wisdom and compassion.
This is really fascinating. It makes me think about how we can develop these strengths in our own lives through practices like meditation, self-reflection, and ethical conduct.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we have the inner resources to navigate the challenges of life and cultivate greater wisdom, compassion, and resilience.
Okay, moving on to Dharma 114, the three kinds of knowledge. We've talked about wisdom, but how does knowledge differ from wisdom in this context?
So while wisdom often refers to a more experiential understanding, a deep knowing that arises from lived experience, knowledge in this Dharma seems to refer to specific types of insight or understanding that support our spiritual growth. The first type is undoubting, which suggests a firm conviction in the truth of the teachings, a deep trust in the path and the wisdom of those who have walked it before us.
So it's not about blind faith, but a trust that's grounded in understanding and personal experience.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a deep sense of confidence in the path and the transformative power of the Dharma. The second type of knowledge is awakening from the nature of doubt, which highlights the importance of, questioning, inquiry, critical thinking. It's about engaging with the teachings intellectually and seeking clarity and understanding through reasoned analysis.
So it's about using our intellect to sharpen our understanding and dispel any doubts or misconceptions we might have.
Precisely. It's about cultivating a discerning mind that can differentiate between skillful and unskillful views and make choices that are aligned with wisdom and compassion. And finally, we have a secret means to truth and welfare, which is, a bit more enigmatic. But I think it's pointing to a profound and transformative understanding that transcends the limitations of ordinary thought.
So it's like a deep, intuitive knowing,
Yeah.
a direct experience of truth that goes beyond words and concepts.
Exactly. It's a knowledge that is both liberating and beneficial, leading to both personal freedom and the well-being of all beings.
Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing. Now, Dharma 115 addresses the two obstructions. What is obstructing us on the path to enlightenment? What are the hurdles we need to overcome?
So this Dharma identifies two key obstacles that hinder our progress towards, greater wisdom, compassion, and freedom. The first is the obstruction of defilements, which refers to our negative emotions like greed, hatred, and delusion.
So all those things that cloud our minds, distort our perceptions, and lead to suffering, those internal saboteurs that we all struggle with.
Exactly. These defilements create a kind of internal turbulence that makes it difficult to see clearly and act skillfully. And then the second obstruction is the obstruction of what remains to be known, which refers to our lack of complete understanding of the Dharma.
So even if we've managed to tame our negative emotions, we still need to cultivate wisdom and insight. It's not enough to just be a good person. We need to understand the nature of reality and the path to liberation.
Precisely. It's a reminder that the path to enlightenment requires both purification and realization. We need to both cleanse our minds of unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities such as wisdom, compassion, and loving kindness.
Okay, this is really starting to paint a comprehensive picture of the path and the challenges we face along the way. Now, Dharma 116 brings us to the two kinds of selflessness. This sounds like a challenging concept. What does it mean to be selfless in a Buddhist context?
So this is a core Buddhist teaching that challenges our usual way of thinking about ourselves and the world. It's not about denying our individuality or becoming doormats, but about recognizing the interconnected and impermanent nature of reality, including our own sense of self.
So it's about letting go of our attachment to a fixed and independent sense of self.
Exactly. The first type of selflessness is the selflessness of all things, which refers to the understanding that all phenomena are impermanent and interdependent.
So everything is in constant flux, interconnected, and subject to change. Nothing exists in isolation or independently of everything else.
Precisely. This understanding challenges the notion that things have, an inherent independent existence. It's a radical shift in perspective that can liberate us from clinging and grasping, allowing us to experience greater peace and equanimity. And the second type of selflessness is the selflessness of people, which challenges the idea of a permanent, unchanging self or soul.
So even our sense of self is a construct, a collection of thoughts, feelings, and experiences that are constantly changing and evolving.
In a way, yeah, it's not that there's no self at all, but rather that our sense of self is a fluid and dynamic process, not a fixed entity.
Wow, that's a pretty radical idea. Makes me wonder how this understanding of selflessness impacts our interactions with others and our view of the world.
It has profound implications for how we live our lives, right? By recognizing our interconnectedness, we're more likely to act with compassion and care toward others. And by understanding the impermanence of all things, we're less likely to cling to, fleeting pleasures and material possessions. And by letting go of our attachment to a fixed sense of self, we open ourselves to greater freedom and joy.
This is really deep stuff. Now, Dharma 117 introduces the two kinds of requisites. What are these requisites for? What do we need to cultivate in order to progress on the path?
So this Dharma highlights the essential ingredients for, spiritual growth and liberation. The first is the requisite of merit, which refers to the positive karma we accumulate through, virtuous actions, thoughts, and speech.
So it's about cultivating wholesome qualities and acting in ways that benefit ourselves and others.
Exactly. Merit creates a favorable environment for spiritual practice. It's like planting seeds in fertile soil. And then the second requisite is the requisite of knowledge, which refers to the wisdom and understanding we cultivate through study, contemplation, and meditation.
So it's about understanding the nature of reality, the causes of suffering, and the path to liberation.
Precisely. Knowledge illuminates the path and guides our actions, like a lamp that dispels darkness.
This makes perfect sense. We need both the fuel of merit and the light of knowledge to navigate the path and reach our destination.
Exactly. They work together, creating a virtuous cycle that supports our spiritual growth and liberation. Now, we're nearing the end of this section, and Dharma 118 brings us to the 6 obstacles to concentration. We've talked about concentration before, but what are the specific obstacles that prevent us from developing a focused and clear mind?
Yeah, this is something I struggle with in my own meditation practice. My mind tends to wander all over the place. What are these internal saboteurs that we need to be aware of?
Okay, so this Dharma outlines 6 key obstacles that hinder our ability to cultivate a calm and concentrated mind. And the first is indolence, which is basically laziness or lack of motivation.
Yeah.
It's that feeling of resistance we sometimes experience, when we try to sit down and meditate or engage in any kind of spiritual
Oh, I know
practice.
that feeling all too well. It's like that voice in my head that says, just 5 more minutes of scrolling through social media.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that resistance and, gently but firmly encouraging ourselves to show up and do the work. And then the second obstacle is conceit, which refers to arrogance or an inflated sense of self-importance. It's that part of us that thinks we already know everything, or that we're somehow better than others.
So that can block us from learning and growing because we're not open to new insights or feedback.
Absolutely. Humility is an essential quality on the spiritual path, a willingness to acknowledge that we still have much to learn. And then the third obstacle is deceit, which could refer to self-deception or dishonesty. It's about recognizing those times when we're not being truthful with ourselves or others, perhaps out of fear, shame, or a desire to protect our ego.
So authenticity and honesty are essential for spiritual growth. We can't make progress if we're not willing to face our own shadow side.
Exactly. The fourth obstacle is agitation, which refers to mental restlessness and distraction. It's that monkey mind that jumps from thought to thought, constantly seeking stimulation and entertainment.
Oh, I know that monkey mind all too well. It's like a wild animal that needs to be tamed.
Exactly. Mindfulness practice is essential for, calming the mind and cultivating greater focus and concentration. And the fifth obstacle is lack of effort, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's about recognizing those times when we're not putting in the effort required to make progress on the path.
So it's about cultivating discipline, perseverance, and a willingness to do the work even when it's challenging.
Precisely. And the final obstacle is lack of truth, which could refer to a lack of clarity or understanding about the nature of reality and the path to liberation. It's about recognizing those areas where we need to deepen our understanding and continue to learn and grow.
So it's about cultivating a curious and inquiring mind, a willingness to question our assumptions and seek greater knowledge and wisdom.
Exactly. These 6 obstacles aren't meant to discourage us, but to make us aware of the internal challenges we might face on the path. By recognizing them and developing skillful antidotes, we can create the conditions for greater peace, clarity, and liberation.
This is really helpful. I feel like I have a much better understanding of the obstacles that can arise in meditation and in life in general. It's reassuring to know that these challenges are not unique to me, but are common to all human beings. Now, Dharma 119 seems to offer some tools for overcoming these obstacles. It's called the 8 Practices for the Abandoning of Conditions. What are these practices and how do they help us overcome the obstacles we've just discussed?
So this Dharma outlines 8 qualities we can cultivate to navigate the challenges of the path and create the conditions for, greater freedom and happiness. Think of these practices as antidotes to the 6 obstacles, tools we can use to cultivate a more balanced, peaceful, and awakened mind.
Okay, I'm ready to upgrade my toolkit. Let's dive into these 8 practices.
Okay, so the first practice is faith, which in this context doesn't refer to blind belief, but rather a deep trust in the path, the teachings, and our own capacity for awakening. It's about, having confidence in the transformative power of the Dharma and the possibility of liberation.
So it's about cultivating a sense of hope and inspiration, a belief that we can overcome the obstacles and realize our true potential.
Exactly. Faith gives us the courage to keep going, even when the path is challenging. And then the second practice is intelligence, which emphasizes the importance of clear thinking, discernment, and critical analysis. It's about using our intellect to understand the teachings, question our assumptions, and make wise choices.
So it's about using our minds skillfully, both to study the teachings and to examine our own thoughts and behaviors.
Precisely. Intelligence helps us see things more clearly and make choices that are aligned with wisdom and compassion. The third practice is endeavor, which highlights the importance of effort, diligence, and perseverance.
So it's about putting in the work, showing up consistently, and not giving up on the path even when we encounter difficulties.
Exactly. Endeavor is the fuel that propels us forward, the willingness to do what it takes to cultivate the qualities that lead to liberation. And then the fourth practice is calm, which refers to cultivating mental tranquility and stability.
So it's about taming that monkey mind we talked about earlier, learning to quiet the internal chatter and create a sense of inner peace.
Precisely. Calm creates a foundation for deeper insights and realizations. The fifth practice is mindfulness, which emphasizes paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
So it's about cultivating a non-reactive awareness of our thoughts, feelings, and sensations
Yeah,
without getting caught up in them or identifying with them.
exactly. Mindfulness allows us to see things more clearly and respond to challenges with greater wisdom and compassion. And then the sixth practice is full knowledge, which points to developing a deep and comprehensive understanding of the Dharma.
So it's about going beyond intellectual knowledge to a deeper experiential understanding, a direct knowing that arises from practice and insight.
Yes. Full knowledge is the culmination of all the other practices. It's a deep and embodied understanding of the nature of reality and the path to liberation. And the seventh practice is intention, which refers to, setting clear and wholesome aspirations.
So it's about aligning our actions with our values and directing our energy toward the qualities we want to cultivate.
Precisely. Intention gives our practice direction and purpose. And then the final practice is equanimity, which is about cultivating a balanced and peaceful mind that is not disturbed by external circumstances.
So it's about developing a kind of inner stability that allows us to navigate the ups and downs of life with grace and ease.
Exactly. Equanimity is the fruit of all the other practices, a state of inner peace that is not dependent on external conditions.
Okay, this is really powerful stuff. It feels like we've been given a roadmap for navigating the challenges of life and cultivating the qualities that lead to greater freedom and happiness. It's inspiring to think that we have the power to transform our minds and create a more peaceful and compassionate world.
Absolutely. These 8 practices are not just abstract concepts, but tools we can use to create real and lasting change in our lives.
This has been an incredible journey so far. We've explored a wide range of topics.
From the foundations of concentration to the obstacles we face on the path and the practices that can help us overcome them.
And we've still got more to go.
I know, right? This Dharma collection, there is just so much in here.
It's incredible.
It's a treasure trove of wisdom.
Okay, so let's dive into the next set of dharmas. Where do we go from here?
Okay, so Dharma 108 brings us to the 3 kinds of energy.
Right.
Remember we were talking about energy as that fuel that propels us forward on the path?
Yeah, it's what allows it to put all these teachings into practice and make real progress.
Exactly. And this Dharma outlines 3 distinct types of energy that support our spiritual journey. So the first one is energy as armor, which is about cultivating resilience and determination, protecting ourselves from those negative influences.
So it's like building up our inner strength and resistance to the challenges we inevitably face on the path.
Precisely. Think of it as like developing a strong immune system, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. It's about fortifying ourselves against negativity and distractions so we can stay focused on our practice.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the second type of energy?
So the second one is energy as practice, which emphasizes diligent and consistent effort in our chosen path. It's about, showing up day after day and doing the work even when it's difficult.
Or we don't feel like it.
Yeah, or we don't feel
That's where discipline and perseverance come in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about cultivating a strong work ethic, not in the sense of like grinding ourselves down, but in the sense of consistently applying ourselves to our practice. Knowing that even small, consistent efforts can yield significant results over time. Think of it like tending a garden. We need to water the seeds regularly, pull out the weeds, and nurture the plants if we want them to flourish.
That's a great analogy. So consistent effort is key. What about the third type of energy?
So the third type is energy as accomplishment, which refers to the powerful energy that arises when we start to see the fruits of our effort. It's the energy of, progress, realization, and joy.
So this is the reward for all that hard work and dedication.
Exactly. It's that feeling of satisfaction and inspiration that we get when we experience a breakthrough in our practice, when we gain a new insight, or when we simply, feel a sense of peace and well-being.
I can see how that kind of energy would be incredibly motivating, propelling us forward on the path with renewed enthusiasm.
Precisely. It's a reminder that the path is not just about, struggle and effort. It's also about joy, fulfillment, and the realization of our true potential.
Okay, so we have these 3 types of energy. Energy as armor, energy as practice, and energy as accomplishment. How do these energies relate to the other dharmas we've explored, like the 4 concentrations and the manifold receptivities?
That's a great question. Think of it like this. The 4 concentrations provide a framework for developing focus and clarity, which is essential for cultivating all 3 types of energy.
So without concentration, our energy is scattered and unfocused.
Exactly. It's like trying to run a marathon without any training or preparation. We might have the initial burst of energy, but we'll quickly burn out. And the manifold receptivities, on the other hand, are about cultivating an open and receptive mind, which allows us to, absorb the teachings, learn from our experiences, and grow in wisdom and compassion.
So receptivity creates the fertile ground for these energies to take root and flourish.
Precisely. It's like having a rich and fertile soil that allows the seeds of practice to sprout and grow. Without receptivity, we might be putting in the effort, but we won't be fully absorbing the teachings or allowing them to transform us.
This is really starting to come together. It feels like we're weaving a tapestry of understanding, connecting all these different concepts and practices.